Colombia is turning into a lawless nation that functions on the edge, barely keeping the lid on anarchy. Kidnapping, extortion, killings are a daily occurrence, and no one in Colombia is immune to the violence. This country supplies the planet with 80% of its cocaine, an export that fuels the bloodshed, leaving death in its wake. Colombia is one of the world's most dangerous places, and the next stop in the adventures of Robert Young Pelton.
We're going into combat with the Riverine Battalion. They've just spotted a group of guerrillas up ahead here. Politician was shot 30 times, they say. Things have gone insane here.
Colombia is a diverse South American country with picture postcard rural settings, quaint villages populated by friendly faces, a modern, bustling capital city perched in the clouds. Overall, the country is a travel brochure with one thing missing: tourists. Kidnapping and death are real possibilities for people considering travel to Colombia. It keeps all but the most adventurous tourists away. You need only to scratch below the surface of its picturesque scenes to discover a country at war with itself.
Colombia is an interesting country because it's a very civilized country, and yet they've had almost 4 decades of warfare. And there's 4 major groups involved in the conflict. 2 of them are Marxist rebels, and then of course there's the government, and then there's the paramilitaries, which is a right-wing group or collection of groups that are fighting against the rebels. And there's also the underlying problem of the drug war.
For Pelton, meeting the players and understanding the nature of the war is what draws him to a battlefront only a 3-hour flight from Miami. The U.S. government provides billions of dollars in military aid to fight this war. Today, it labels Colombia one of the most dangerous places on Earth and warns its citizens to stay away. Pelton ignores the warnings. As he arrives in Bogotá, the capital city, a state of emergency has been declared. The Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, known as the FARC, a left-wing group the U.S. government labels terrorists, has allegedly bombed the president's palace on the day of his inauguration. The government is under siege. One of the FARC's leaders, Mono Jojoy, has threatened hundreds of town mayors with assassination unless they resign immediately. FARC's objective is clear: destabilize the Colombian government.
The FARC are Marxist rebels. What they've done is they've specifically gone to mayors and say, we will kill you. If you don't resign tomorrow, we will put you on a death list and you'll be assassinated. Now, so far about 50 mayors have been killed, so it's not an idle threat. And obviously the one person they would love to get their hands on is the mayor of the largest city in Colombia, which is Bogotá.
Bogotá Mayor Antanas Mocus lives under constant threat of death, all because he chooses a life in government. Still, he takes precautions. He travels in an armored SUV and is never without his bulletproof vest with its signature heart opening. Mocus is a mayor who takes risks. A stroll to a balcony just off his office makes him an inviting target to the FARC. But he does it, in part, to show the people of Bogotá that he is not afraid, and to send a message that he will not be intimidated by FARC death threats. Bogotá is a city that, even in the best of times, has a reputation for being crime-ridden. Kidnapping is so rampant, there's a radio station set up to send messages to kidnap victims and their captors. Street crime is pervasive, with a robbery taking place every 20 minutes. Into this mix, throw in FARC urban terrorist squads, and you have a city that functions on the razor's edge of fear, especially when the sun goes down.
We're heading out an operation to capture 6 to 12, they don't quite know, members of the FARC. They're actually an urban group, and they've been surveilled for the last few months. And there's going to be about 15 cops involved in this operation. They're going in with bulletproof vests and submachine guns. And it's going to be fairly tense because these groups have a tendency to shoot back. So I decided to go out on a patrol. It was actually a specific attempt to arrest a group of terrorists that were hiding in a house to see just how entrenched these people were. And typically these people live in the worst parts of Bogotá. And there are a number of sympathizers inside the cities who will hide these people. The FARC will send people into the urban areas, and they'll be trained in combat, in subversive acts, in terrorist acts, and they will bring explosives and weapons into the city and try to terrorize or create terrorist acts that will destabilize the population there. So our goal that night was to go get some people who had been fingered by an informant and hopefully bring them back in peacefully. We're now heading towards the scene of the operation, and there's about 5 or 6 cars involved in this operation, and we also have an intelligence person driving this car, and they're going to allow us to I guess watch from about half a block away, and then once they secure it, they'll let us go in and film. Does he expect there'll be much shooting at this operation?
¿Piensa que va a haber disparos en esta operación o no?
Posiblemente.
Possibly, yes.
From Pelton's point of view, with his camera set on night vision, the scene at the suspected urban terrorist hideout begins to unfold. For a war zone seasoned traveler like Pelton, Colombia is new territory. It's a battleground unlike any other he has ever visited.
Normally when I go into a war zone, an area of conflict, journalists are not really drawn into the conflict unless they're actually caught in the middle of a battle. But Colombia is one place where the Marxist rebels have specifically targeted Americans and Westerners as their prime targets. I mean, they want to make a political statement. They will capture a senior political figure, or they will look for Americans or Canadians or Australians, anybody that seems to be from a Western country. And they become part of the political currency here, not just for money. I mean, you can pay up to $5 million as a ransom here if you're kidnapped, but it sends a message to the government that they don't control the country.
To Pelton's amazement, the stealth-like atmosphere of the raid is shattered with one simple action.
We had put on bulletproof vests. The police had taken their weapons. They had silencers, they had automatic weapons, they had a lot of firepower. And they had very carefully snuck into this area, although it's quite difficult with all the dogs barking. And just as they were ready to enter the apartment, Colombian law says that you have to knock on the door first. So we were doing this in the middle of the night, and
Yes.
From Pelton's point of view, with his camera set on night vision, the scene at the suspected urban terrorist hideout begins to unfold. For a war-zone seasoned traveler like Pelton, Colombia is new territory. It's a battleground unlike any other he has ever visited.
normally when I go